everyone. My name is Emma Kittle, and welcome back to the Hidden Pearls Podcast. This is the first long format podcast episode, YouTube, however you're consuming it, that we have released in a while, and I'm super, super excited. Funny part is it's not actually a podcast interview that we're doing. It's one that Bruce and I are on. And so we've had Chris Ward. I've shared a couple other podcasts that we've done with Chris, but he has an awesome podcast called Like A Bigfoot. And he interviews all these different extreme athletes, people who go out and just live in the wilderness. They're testing themselves. They're pushing their limits. Chris is also has been a huge part in helping us get our podcast up and running. So a lot of the credit, we always just want to give it back to Chris because he has been such a resource. So just want to give a little shout out and also share this episode because we really go deep into mindfulness. And a huge part of, I feel like, our learning medicine has been over this past year is how can we really take all the lessons that we have learned through athletics, through all the trainings we've done, through the life coaching, the holistic nutrition coaching we've done, and how can we start to bring that back and offer it in a way that is not necessarily unique or different by any means, because we don't really believe in that we're creating all these ideas, but more just sharing them in different ways because I know that sometimes it just takes a different way of hearing something for something to really land. And so with that, I just wanted to give a little preface for this episode. It's pretty fun. Bruce and I, you're going to hear us get pretty spiritual, shall we say, but just really deep into the things that we've been studying a lot lately and a lot of our beliefs and practices. So thank you so much for watching. I can't recommend enough going and checking out Chris's page, checking out his other podcasts. They're super fascinating. He's also producing a documentary right now. So we will be sharing that when it comes out, but it's about a extreme race that they do across Colorado into Utah. It's called Desert Rats, and I'm super excited. I actually thought about doing it this year, but did not. But definitely something that I'm curious about doing and getting more into ultra running in that way. So with that, thank you so much for watching the Hidden Pearls Podcast and being a part of our community. If you enjoy this episode, please hit subscribe on our YouTube. You can give us a rating, 5-star please, on the Apple Podcast app, and just subscribe to that and follow. So we really appreciate all of you guys and hope you all are having a great day. See ya.
Sorry, what'd you say, Bruce?
You have a Bigfoot tattoo yet?
I don't have a Bigfoot tattoo. No, I only have one tattoo.
Forearm tat, man.
I know. I got to step up my tattoo game. I thought that would be cheesy if that was,
It'd be great. We got a tattoo guy if you need one.
You got what?
We got a tattoo person if you need one.
Oh, do you? In Santa Fe?
Yeah.
Bruce has recently gotten like 5 different tattoos.
Nice.
Rolling. Oh, well.
All right. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today, joined once again, 2 of my favorite guests of all time for number 299 of the podcast, so I'm psyched. I'm sitting down with, thank you. Sitting down here with Bruce and Emma Kittle, and I'm psyched to talk about you guys. Bruce, I got to ask, though, the new tattoos, what kind of tattoos did you get? Why'd you get them? We'll start there.
We're jumping right in. Okay, let's see.
There has been no social media exposure, so this is the first peek at all of it. So
yeah, I got off of Instagram, Facebook, about everything a year ago, January.
I bet you feel way better about life and the world.
You know what? Like, it was kind of the New Year's Eve thing, and then I just, that does that, your screen time and all that, and then it breaks it down. And I was looking at Instagram, and I'm like, wow, I could read a book. You know what I mean? Or like, I just was like, and then I don't know, do I like it or don't I? And then honestly, with all the politics and all that shit, I just I'm off. So I didn't. Okay, so these are a pair of otters. So my primary spirit animal is the otter. So land and water, playful, curious, and a lover of humanity. Although many who are listening may doubt that, but I do. Anyway, so I have my days. But anyway, so just a reminder. So love the otters, and they're kind of a pair for life kind of thing. So I got my partner on there too. So.
And when you're swimming, you break shells with a rock on your belly. Is that it?
My belly could probably break some shells. Anyway, not because it's all ripped. And then let's see these two. So that one, Sanskrit for breathe.
got it in Vegas at like 1 a.m.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do that. And so we were in Vegas for the Pro Bowl stuff. And it was 1 a.m. And so we just freaking opened the thing up, found a tat shop that was open and strolled in, and I showed it to her. That's and then awesome. This guy, those are kind of, anyway, it's a Greek, there's a lot of different interpretations for that. But anyway, it's a Greek symbol for power. But for me, it's the concentric circles, starting with the knowledge of the self, and then kind of your immediate tribe family, and then working out with friends and community, and then to the broader world. Represents how we're all connected, and the dots to the center lift us to that higher power, whatever we might think that is, but connection to the universal energy. And the bird is the raven, and also with a partner who also mates for life. And so, but the raven is our contact in my world between us and the spirit world. And so it's kind of, because I think we're always living with kind of a veil, and life creates opportunities for us to step through the veil and touch that reality which is around us, but we are unable to see. And hopefully mindfulness and meditation allow us to do that in a more powerful way. So anyway.
And
that's amazing.
And if y'all listen to house music, this is kind of the bass nectar sign too. So
I don't even know who that is.
So. I was like, Dad, you're getting a bass nectar sign too? That's so crazy. He's like, no, it means something else, Emma.
But anyway, that's okay too if people want to roll with that. So whatever. But anyway, so that's my most recent.
See, this is why I like having you guys on, because I can ask one question and you already said stuff that I'm like, all right, we're here. This is the best part ever. So that's amazing, man. And you mentioned, opportunities, in that. And there's something you said, you wrote a blog a long time ago. We've talked about it before, but it's the idea of open windows. And how for periods of life, windows are open and then they eventually close, and you have to like understand the opportunities when they arise. And that's honestly, I learned that by reading your writing about it, and I've like thought about that so much ever since then.
Yeah, and so and that's still kind of a concept working on. Well, it's a longer story, the open windows, but that as just a life perspective, I think is really true. The one thing I would add about that, because, at that point, George was just transitioning kind of from, we opened that with, it really got me thinking, because George's career at Iowa got me thinking about my own. And in the midst of my Iowa career, I was not nearly as, it just kind of puts it along and trying to stay eligible or get your degree and perform at the highest level you can and all that. And the days go by, and next thing you know, 5 years are done, and you're walking out the door and you're like, whoa. And then, George had about 2 years left. I think we were in year 3 going into year 4. But anyway, and it just really made me like reconnect with that whole idea and trying to ring his bell a little bit and say, hey, look, pay attention. These days are short, they're numbered. And it really got me thinking about all that. And really, as life is, these moments come along, you have kids like you do. And, they're there for a little while. And then the stages they go through, you think they're going to be around forever, and they're not. You know what I mean? And they grow up, they get the junior high. As soon as they get their driver's license, you're kind of a second thought, And from there on, it's kind of like, all it is a process of letting go. They get into high school, they get busier, they got friends, they got boyfriends, girlfriends. Then it's college, and then a different location, and then it's whatever else. So anyway, so all of that. And I guess, the one thing I would add, though, is I think we have a lot more control. I wouldn't say control, but we have a lot more input into the windows that come our way. I'm not much about fate. I believe in destiny, and that we create our destiny and we claim our destiny. And a lot of that has to do with the mental energy that we project. And we were talking before we got on about abundance, and I think that's really true about envisioning and projecting and living at a frequency of abundance, of love, of joy. And I believe that life rises up to meet us at the level of the frequency and energy that we project. And so, I think when I first started the open windows concept, it had a little bit more fatalistic attitude that these windows just kind of accidentally pop up. But I don't believe that anymore. I think a lot more that with the right mental energy and connections and networking and trust in the universe, that we have a lot of input into the windows that actually appear for us. So that's a whole nother show probably. But anyway, so open windows are there. And I think when we see those kind of things, and I feel like that's exactly where we're at right now. And so we are constantly trying to observe the windows. We're trying to always observe what energies we're projecting and, what kind of windows that we're creating in our life. What people are we attracting to our lives, and trying to operate at the highest frequency and at a frequency of abundance. And then when those windows pop, try to be fearless and embrace it. And at the same time, recognizing who we are as individuals in the self, and then taking that self into the wildest, craziest opportunities that we can without fear, and trusting that even though you step off the ledge, there is something there and it'll show up. But a lot of times you never see it until you leave the stance in which you've been standing in. So you got to go, like that Indiana Jones movie, you know, with the last tomb, you know, he had to step off and it was there, but you couldn't see it or find it.
The leap of faith.
Leap of faith, right. And you couldn't, and there's no way for to see it until you take the step. So anyway, I'm digressing. So I hope that, you know, that there's a little something to think about. Anyway, we're thinking about that.
That's amazing. So Emma, I have to ask this, like, so I wonder if that perspective comes along like as you go through the world. And so if Bruce is sharing that with you, like, what are your thoughts on that whole concept? You know,
you mean just like thoughts, or like how is it kind of
like Bruce is what's the word? Wizened? Is that the word? Like wizened? And I don't know if I don't want it to sound like that means old.
Pissed on me or what?
I don't know. It's either you're a wizard or you got peed on. There's one of the two things happening.
I thought I read it once, and then someone's like, that just means old. And I'm like, shit, I thought that meant wise. But so I'm meaning it as wise and from experience. But I'm just wondering, like, do you think, like, do you have the same thoughts on that, like open windows, open, or like bringing your own opportunities? Like, is that kind of your mindset as well?
Yes. And I think, I mean, it's a lot easier on the back end to like, cause I've had really over the last probably 6 to 8 months, I've had some really like coincidences that have really blown my mind, and like foreshadowing of things that I had no idea were going to tie together. And then all of a sudden it was like this random book that I started reading because of this like really painful situation that I went through, that ended up, I was just down in Peru, and it was like, this book was like the perfect foreshadowing for this one shaman that I was sitting with. And it was like, you know, like in those moments, it's so crazy when everything starts to come together. And I think on the back end, it's so much easier to be like, oh yeah, like I just took the step and believed in myself, you know, but in the moment, I'm still like, what the, like I have moments all the time where we're like, what the hell are we doing? Like, like I feel so lost. I feel like a ping pong ball, and I feel like very confused in that sense. But what I have found and what helps me the most is the more aligned that I can live within taking care of my body. So through the things that I'm consuming, from food, from liquid, from, you know, like really staying hydrated, from the media that I'm consuming, or like being really diligent about my meditation practice and really taking care of myself in that way, the more aligned that I can live, the more aligned I feel like I am with the universe. And then when those things happen, they don't seem so, yeah, exactly. It's like, they don't seem so random anymore. It seems like I'm in alignment and I was really clear on the things that I wanted, and now they're coming through. But I mean, I still catch myself in saying, I'm getting a lot better about not saying things like, oh, that's so crazy, or like, what a coincidence. And now I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like I asked for that, you know? And I think when you can own it, the more happens, you know, and it's just kind of having an open conversation with the universe and knowing that things are going to keep coming.
Yeah. One, I think part of that is just like self-understanding, like understanding yourself at a deeper level. And a lot of it is just like, you guys seem like very like curious people. Like you're curious about the world, you're curious about yourself. And I think that's like a huge trait in kind of finding that and then allowing those opportunities. Or like you said, Bruce, like Indiana Jones, like confidently taking that step just because you're like, I don't know where it's going, but I know me and I know I'm going to be okay. You know, and I have to share my life philosophy then. Another Spielberg movie. It's just Jurassic Park. Life will find a way, you know?
No doubt.
Yeah. And then my other one is Hold On to Your Butts, also from Jurassic Park. But
okay.
That's just like, buckle up. Here we go.
Yeah, right. Enjoy the ride. It might be a little bumpy along the way, and there's going to be some speed humps and bumps and all that, and you're going to get knocked around. But you know, if you're hanging on and going in the right direction, you know, it is going to be okay. So
I really like the Life Will Find a Way one. I was listening to this Joe Rogan podcast, and it was just, I mean, it's fun now because people can send clips on social media through that, but he was talking about how massive the galaxy really is, and how like the black holes within black holes and universes, and like you really can't even conceptualize how big that is. But in listening to those things, or like the life will find a way thing, it reminds me how unimportant like little things on social media, or like little things that I get so caught up in. And like, I'll own that. Like there are some days when I get like anxious about posting on social media and like so nervous. And, I think that's the whole, another person I'm being influenced by about like how much we're sharing, but like, we're in the podcasting business and that's what we do. But when I just catch myself in those moments when I'm really nervous about things, and whether or not it's social media, but it's like, we're so small. And even just thinking about Jurassic Park in general, like, I mean, like there were dinosaurs here and now they're gone, and it's like really in the span of everything, we're this tiny little blip on the radar. And while we feel so incredibly important, I mean, I think I'm important, but at the same time, like, thanks, Dad. Thanks. I feel very important, but at the same time, it's like, are these random fears that I'm having really going to matter tomorrow? And like in that way, I love to remind myself about that, because I think feeling really small also makes you feel really humble. And then you're like, well, I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I actually had an interesting conversation last weekend with two of my friends about when you've seen, like they were mentioning like volcanoes, like they went to Hawaii and saw the volcano erupting. Another one was on a mountain and, like the glacier was melting, avalanche was happening and things like that. And we just talked about how that like eliminates the ego, because you're kind of like, and you guys know, you've climbed mountains. You go into the mountain where you're like, I'm going to battle this mountain. I'm going to fight it out with this mountain and get to the top and conquer it. And then you witness something like that is so powerful. And you're just like, this mountain, I'm not in a fight with, the mountain doesn't know I'm in a fight with it. The mountain just is the mountain, And I think that's really good for like the human experience to have that.
Yeah, mountains, they just tolerate us. It's, we are just a fly on the speck, and it's like no big deal. It's like a horse with a fly on the butt, and it just whips the tail, and it may not knock you off. All we do is we find balance with that. Hey, the Jurassic Park though, when this scene with Jeff Goldberg and they're riding in the Jeep, and he talks about chaos theory.
Yeah.
I mean, those two together about chaos theory, the unpredictability of it all, and the illusion of any kind of control. I think such a great lesson, right? Because right when he's doing the drop on the wrist, with her, then they stop and she jumps out of the car, and he's like, just like that. Who would have predicted that the doctor would have got out of the car, And then, but then the bigger theme is, life finds a way, like it's not supposed to have. And, we're supposed to genetically engineer this whole thing to happen this way.
Yeah.
But you got these animals who are not supposed to have any opportunity to procreate. They do.
Yeah.
And next thing we know, we have all of these mutations, and like, what the hell? So anyway, so that's a great example. And like, okay, so what are we doing? Like you said, buckle up, and let's roll. So that's all good.
And we just what we were talking about right before we got on this call, like we're in New Mexico, and there are 3 fires in a triangle around where we live.
Yeah.
And like, talk about feeling small and unimportant. Yeah.
Speaking of the glaciers melting and climate change and all that, that's another one. But anyway, we can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I think like when you intentionally are putting yourself in an environment like climbing a mountain, you can experience that. And I think it's good for your soul to experience that. And it's good for your ego, brings your ego down a bit,
Yep. Keeps you, reality.
And now you're in the mountains. So you're just climbing all sorts of New Mexico mountains now, right?
Well, we hike a lot. We haven't like getting in the car and driving. We're trying to commit to taking kind of 1-day trip at least every 2 weeks, so we're out for the day up in there. So there's, we're not very far from that. Like Taos is like an hour, a little over.
Nice.
And so right up there, and the highest peak in New Mexico is there. It's about 13.5, I think. So, which I've climbed that at one time, but I'm looking to do that shortly, as long as the fires hold out and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of national forest here and wildlife and all that kind of stuff. So it's very pretty, very great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about a couple different things today. One, you guys work with really high level athletes through Thunderbird Performance, and you are focused a lot on the mind, which I love that. And there was one kind of idea that I was trying to figure out in my own head, which is basically the idea of when you're working with high level athletes, they are striving for perfection. They're trying to be as best they can, especially like they have to get the edge over the other athletes. And so you have to be perfect. But also with a healthy mindset, you're balancing that self-acceptance, like you're balancing the understanding, like failure is important in this process and I have to make mistakes. How do you guide athletes through that? That seems like a really weird, like minefield of perfectionism versus acceptance and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so, our stuff is all based on mindfulness. There's a lot of different approaches out there for athletes.
Hey, wait, is he close enough to the microphone?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Last time we had a little bit of Bruce on the beach problem. So
I was like, was that a callback to last time? Bruce is not on a beach this time, unfortunately.
We're a little bummed.
Okay. All right. So, in the mindfulness world, so that whole thing is about, so I have working with athletes, I have something called 4 levels of the self: know thyself, heal thyself, be thyself, share thyself, and so knowing the self and healing self kind of opens us up to that whole thing. So in the mindfulness world, we accept and realize that thoughts are just thoughts, emotions just emotions. And then the idea is to be deliberate and intentional and stay present. So in that, so we work with athletes on what their higher purpose is, what is their real why, deepest why. And then we create vision and goals out of that. Then we develop process and action steps to get them to their goals. And then we work primarily on living all that out, but doing it so in a deliberate and intentional way, staying present in the very moment, which means practicing whatever they do. And so in that, so if they're doing that, and we work with them on breath work and the yoga and all that kind of stuff. And so if I'm deliberate and intentional in my practice, so like going to practice every day, I have 1 or 2 things I know I'm going to work on. I'm going to focus on those, nothing too, shocking there. But you're right, like in the performance arena, like if you're in a big game under pressure situations and all that, I think it's true with everything in life. The stronger and more, either, I don't want to call it resistance, but the more you grasp and reach and like struggle for something, the more clearly it seems like it's going to elude you. And it's a delicate balance about staying in that framework. And I think some of the most important things is, we believe that, your confidence is built on the things that you do every day. Small steps, all taken consistently in the same direction, lead to amazing results. And so you earn confidence by the things that you do in your workouts. And so if you practice your meditation and your breath work, and you do resets, and you prepare, and you do visualization work, and you have your affirmations loaded, and you're doing all that, and at the same time you're doing your speed work, and you're doing your lifting, and you're doing your football skills or whatever sport you're in, you have that confidence. And so then when those moments arise, you're not reaching or grasping. You're just living into becoming and actualizing that full person in which you are fully capable of being. And so that confidence takes over, and there's not a nervousness. There is, you always have a little bit of that, but I think the athletes that have really worked to that stage, eventually they get so comfortable in that arena, and they realize the windows and opportunities for reaching and performing at the highest level in that stage are so limited. It's just like another opportunity. And so when you can take that kind of pressure off, that, and you're just trying to be who you are and do so and I don't want to use Zen in kind of a, kind of cliche kind of way, but there is a little bit of that. It's like a breath work. I know what I'm doing. I'm here. I'm confident. And now it's just a matter of releasing that energy in a way that you've practiced 1,000 times. So you have mind memory, you have muscle memory, you have spirit memory, because, and now, I don't want to take your people over the edge, but like, in a way, well, like the spirit energy is, we've visualized it enough that we know that we've already played that game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like we don't like count the end score and all that kind of stuff, but like, confidently we have visualized what we feel like when we line up on 4th and 1 and have to score a touchdown. I know my feeling. I know what it smells like. I hear the voices across the line of scrimmage from me, all that kind of stuff. And so nothing really surprises me. Nothing shocks me. I am just living out this reality that I've already lived through before and I've fully prepared for. Now, if you haven't prepared for it and you haven't done your mental prep and, you're out of condition and you're not sure of the playbook, you're going to shit some bricks and get your ass kicked probably. You know what I mean? And so I don't know what to say about that. You know what I mean? So it's all a package, it really is. And so all those things, but I think that little difference, there's a lot of people that work really hard. They prepare, they know that playbook, but when you add that mental layer, I think it helps them allow their body to release into doing what they've been preparing to do. And
Yeah.
so it's that real balance. And I think, that at that real peak performance, those athletes, those performers, whatever, when they prepare in that kind of way and they're very confident, they're ready to go, it's all it is flipping that switch. We've probably talked about alter egos and identities and all that kind of stuff. And so it's stepping into those identities and letting those identities and you're not really thinking, you're living that moment out, and your body's, flow again is kind of a, cliche kind of term, but there's a bit of that, you're just kind of letting it go. You're in that moment. You let your mind do what your mind does. And, in football, so you have 40 seconds in between each play. So you have to get the play, get back to the huddle, get a new play, flush whatever happened last time, whether it was good or bad, right? You can't hang on to a good play, and you can't let a bad play impact the next one. Get that new play, get up to the line of scrimmage, read the defense, get your alignment correct, communicate with your teammates, and then execute the next play. So there's not very much time for all that. And it really is a constant, just kind of, it's like a computer just rolling, and the heart is going and all that kind of stuff. So, and there are moments in the game, I've come to believe that there's really, in a football game, there's like 5 plays that make the difference.
Yeah.
There's drives and all that, but they're basically 5 either good or bad plays for either team. And that's what dictates the game. And so it's just like staying in the moment and being ready to either make that play, or
because you don't know when the play is going to happen.
You don't know. You're either playing corner and they're throwing that out, and you either make that tackle and prevent a first down and the game's over, or the guy jukes you and does an out and up and they throw a touchdown over your head and you lose the game in the last 5 seconds. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, but you're always playing on that edge. And you want to make
you just freaked out any football player that was listening to this. They're like, oh shit.
But that's the love of the game though, right? I mean, that's, when you're there and you're in the moment and you have that opportunity, that's the beauty of it. And so every play, has a chance either for a touchdown or a big defensive play or whatever. And so that's why we play, and to honor the game, appreciate the life and breath and energy of the game and be a part of that. So when you walk on the field, I mean, we believe that's a sacred thing. And I don't mean that to diss anybody's religion or anything, but it's like the game has its own life, and we participate in that game as a mere participant. And we recognize the many spirits that have come before us and the many that will come after us. And we just want to honor the game in the way we prepare and play for the game.
You should be the announcer like for the 49ers when they come out, because that was awesome.
So anyway, so that's football mental prep, and it's all those kind of little things that we do to just try to get there. And what you're doing is open the gate and let the water flow. You know
what that made me think of was I don't know if you remember, I don't know how much of the Olympics you guys watch or whatever, but this was probably like not this Winter Olympics, but the one before. Chloe Kim, the snowboarder, she had already won the gold medal. Like, how they can go 3 times or whatever in half pipe. She went in the second time and her score was so ridiculously good that they're like, you won. You already won the gold medal. And I just remember watching that, and she went back up, and I'm like, she could literally just straight line it down the middle of the half pipe and win a gold medal, like if she really wanted to. But I was like, this is going to be really interesting, because we're about to see like the best in the world at what she does. And we're going to see her with no pressure at all, like no performance pressure whatsoever. And I like watched it almost in tears. It was absolutely perfect. And you saw a person connecting in the way you just described, where it's like, she obviously had done this so many times and was so prepared for it, and then had no mental anxiety or stress. It was amazing.
Yeah. When you see that freedom in somebody, whatever it is, it could be a celloist, a pianist, whatever, a runner, endurance runner, whatever it is. When you see somebody in that state, you can't really appreciate all the hours and time and everything they put into it. But when you see it, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
That's like an art. It's like that's creation. It is. And when you see somebody like that, it truly is an art form, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I want to hear real quick about Hidden Pearls, your podcast. I know you did season 2. You've taken quite a long break at this point, because it's been after the football season. And you guys, without you don't have to share your plans for season 3. We were joking about that before we recorded.
We're doing our strategic planning right now. So
But can you kind of like give us a general idea, like when that starts up, like, is there ways you're modifying it, changing your format, focusing on something different?
So season 2, we got involved with a group called Merging Vets and Players, and so MVP, and their whole concept is bringing together former veterans and then former professional athletes. So of any sort of athlete, and Bruce actually qualifies as a former athlete, so he's an MVP member now.
Former, because I signed as a free agent with the Redskins after I got done at Iowa, so I was one and done though and cut by camp. But anyway,
tell them what you did though.
With what?
Signing bonus.
Oh yeah, I bought a motorcycle. So I still have a T-shirt, but I sold the motorcycle after I got married. Jenny didn't like it, so wasn't very much. It was like $2,000. So that was my big signing bonus. I was a big time hitter there. Yeah, sure.
Got that motorcycle.
Of course, I got cut, and you're the Commanders now. They won the Super Bowl that year, so it would have been a good year to make it. But anyway, didn't. So anyway, go ahead.
Not that we're hanging on.
No.
But so what the organization does is they bring veterans and former players together, and they really work through a lot of more still showing people that they have a community. So what happens when the uniform comes off? And there's a lot of loss of identity and a lot of overlaps between veterans and former NFL players. And so a lot of it is movement based. And so they do a workout together and then they share in circle. And it's a really incredible community that we feel really lucky to have tapped into. And so last season, for season 2, we had the George and the other NFL athlete on, which was really fun because this year we added in another component called, Bruce always names our segments with the players, but this was a recovery round top. So obviously my favorite section, but it was really fun to go in and really talk about mental recovery, but also physical and like different recommendations for people at different phases in their lives and kind of the transition of football. And then we would have on a veteran of MVP, so a member of MVP, and then through that, they would tell their story, as much as they wanted to go into it, and kind of their journey out of the military into finding MVP, and just some of the struggles that they've gone through. And so, and then at the end of that, they would choose an organization that they felt very drawn to or that had really helped them. And then we'd make a donation to them and MVP every week. And so, yeah, I mean, a big theme of what I feel like we've focused on with MVP was it's okay to not be okay. But that there's a lot of other people in that. And so you're fine just the way you are. And so we actually had a really awesome opportunity around the Pro Bowl. We got hired to do mindfulness and meditation with the NFLPA. And so they were doing all former players could come in and do a free mental health screening. And so there were all these different, we were in a hospital. And so there were all these different like sleep tests and psych tests and blood work and all these different things going on. And then we were the mental health experts. And so we were teaching mindfulness and meditation, which we didn't know we were going to be a required thing until the morning of. So we kind of rolled in, they're like, yeah, you're going to be like a side booth. And then all of a sudden they're like, so everyone's actually going to have to come and see you and you're going to have to sign up on the papers and give them things to work on. And we're like, totally. Yeah.
This is where but your experience has led you to this point and you're like, we got this.
It was, well, and the greatest part was, I mean, not the greatest, but what it just, I mean, and I feel like we knew this, but just what it like slapped us in the face was how limited resources there are available. And for people who like speak that language and understand what football players have gone through, and while we don't per se know exactly that, we're in it with George. And I feel like us being able to speak the language provides a lot more context and conversation and safety within those really vulnerable moments of, because a lot of people are like, I've never been mindful. And it's like, we had one guy who was, well, I don't know how much detail I can give, but had just incredibly successful. And he was like, I've never been mindful in my life. And it's like, like you showing up every day and focusing on your routine and being present in the moment, like that's all mindfulness, but now seeing how it's compounded on the back end of anxiety pretty much, and never being able to relax and always feeling like rushing to the next thing and never being present in his life, how can we slow things down in a really safe way that still honors he as a human and his spirit and the energy of that, who like everything that brought him to where he is. And so what we decided to do was have a follow-up course. And so we actually just wrapped up a few weeks ago, but we did an MVP and NFLPA Introduction to Meditation and Mindfulness course, which Chris makes me very excited because I know we've been talking to you forever that we were going to release a course, and now we actually like have context and we're putting it into a framework. So that's a really big project that we're hoping to have ready to go by the football season. So we're going back and editing, and then so the whole course will include, it'll probably be 4 different components, but within each of that we'll have a yoga practice, a meditation, a breathwork practice, journal prompts, and then some lectures from, well, me, Bruce, and Rhonda McGee, who is, well, she's just the best. She's a law professor.
Yep.
And psychologist. Meditation.
Yeah, well, she
does everything. She's a genius.
Well, yeah, she's a professor of law at the University of San Francisco Law School, but she's kind of race expert and all that kind of stuff. But she's interestingly, I know how much we've talked about restorative justice, but a lot of the mediation and circle work, she's taken a lot of those dialogue processes and then blended them into kind of race relations. So she just got done with a book, which I have. I got 2 of them on my shelf here somewhere. But anyway, but it's kind of the what's called the inner journey to racial justice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really it's a personal reflection, and then she's got some great guided meditations. But anyway, so she's been through like John Kabat-Zinn's meditation center and all that, so very well trained. But she
was on our course.
Yeah, and she was one of our co-instructors, and she was great. So we had a great turnout with the players and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, go ahead and finish up.
Well, yeah, so I think our biggest goal with this next season is to, especially now that, because Hidden Pearls wasn't supposed to be a podcast. It was supposed to be a like live events and that sort of thing. And then COVID locked us down. And that's when you got the phone call of, Chris, how do we turn our idea into a podcast? And we're here. And so now we really want to be more conscious about doing face-to-face interactions and building our community and really going out. And because it's one thing so we always talk about like your time, your treasure, and your talent and what you can donate. And so I feel like we've been trying to donate all of those with Hidden Pearls, but we really want to go and make those connections and visit a lot of the people who we got to interview in the first 2 seasons and the organizations, and really do some on the ground work with them, and whether, and like show up and actually work at their organizations or donate time. So keep your eyes open, everybody. We're going to be doing
so cool
pop-ups. And we have some merch now finally, which we have to send you. But we have some t-shirts and we're designing hats now, which are so cool. And I'm so excited to share those. So we'll be bribing y'all with merchandise. So
that's cool. Can I tell? So my wife, Lindsay, was like, you should start the podcast, because I have a George jersey. I wear it while I watch 49er games. And Lindsay for Christmas bought me a tight end university shirt. She's like, you should start the podcast in the George jersey and be like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And then take it off and then tight end university. So that's amazing. I wanted to hear, so speaking of like in-person events, Emma, I know you have done some like big yoga classes in like I know you're at the Broncos stadium doing that. And like, what is that like? How do you, speaking of like just being prepared and being present in the moment and trying to battle the nerves, like how do you handle that?
That was a really interesting experience because I didn't know that I was going to be doing the live teaching until the day of. And so that's kind of like the routine. That's the new normal, which I have found. And now that I've come to accept that, it's not as overwhelming, but I was literally like in the tunnel to walk out on, we weren't like down on the field, but like to walk down and like down the steps to go and get the microphone, like doing these breathing exercises, like praying, like, please don't let me mess up. Please, you know what I mean? Like I can do this. But yeah, it's so, and I keep saying this, and like, even with the fact that so last year for Tight End U, we had 2 different yoga classes, and it's like, it's just recovery and mindfulness and yoga are not taboo anymore, and they're really prioritized. Whereas, in college, I was begging. I would show up with like breakfast and donuts and bribe George to let me do yoga with him because I wanted to work with athletes so bad. And now it's like, it's just a part of everything, and it's so cool. And so, it's awesome that it's more normal. I think it's still like the example of when I was at the Broncos, we were doing, it was for mental health, and just how people don't understand that lifestyle practices, such as what we eat, what we consume, how we sleep, and even just taking a minute to breathe can really affect our mental health, and how powerful breathwork practices can be. And that's another thing that we really hope to start sharing more of with Hidden Pearls, is releasing different breathwork practices or reinforcing that and kind of like shoving it down people's throats, so that they mindfully convincing people to at least try it, because it's made such a huge impact on all of our lives, and just the simplicity and the access we have to it.
Yeah. So you keep mentioning, and I definitely want to go back to hear about Titan University. I'm like fascinated by that whole concept, but you keep mentioning like what you're consuming and how that plays on your mental health. And then to relate that to Bruce, getting off social media, can you just talk about that? Like, I know it's a lesson I feel like we all know, which is like, hey, less time on the internet, it's probably going to increase happiness a bit. But Bruce, can you just teach us how you felt about that and like how that's kind of helped?
Well, let's see. I guess there's the whole, being on the screen thing, and before you go to bed, not interrupting your sleep patterns and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, back in, 2020, after I had COVID, and I ended up with long COVID, not super long, but I had a good hard 6-7 months afterwards, and then all the politics and all that kind of stuff. And it just got, between not feeling good and, I've always had a really intimate relationship with my body. And I know that probably sounds weird, but like, I don't know that everybody does, but I think as an athlete, we tend to, because we lift, we're monitoring it, we're trying to be in top condition, we want to be fit, and we learn how to listen to our body. And we also, I think to a strong degree, we express ourselves and we engage life in and through our bodies. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to discount other people. I don't know, but I've met people that don't seem to have that same identification. So the limitations that I felt, I've had some over the years. I'm 63 now, so aging and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I've been really healthy. So COVID kind of hit, and I really had some limitations for a while, and it was really a struggle and a challenge. So, and then that with the politics and the divisiveness and all that kind of stuff. So it was just an easier. It was a mental sanity thing for me just to get, so aside from the time I felt like I was wasting, I wasn't feeling very good. And I just didn't need to hear any more of the, we're 2 years out now, and, I certainly have my views on things, but I kind of recognize, we all probably had some things that were correct. We all probably had some stuff that are not correct, and like really what I'm focused on right now is how do we come together and build unity and face the issues that, climate change is a real deal. What are we going to do about that? And there are still people, racism is still a thing, and, social justice issues and all that. And so, and you can have some disagreements about that, but I just think in the long run, we have a lot more in common than we have that divides us. We go to bed at night, we have families, we have kids. We want our kids to be okay. We want them to be safe. We want them to have health care. We want to feed them and that kind of stuff. And so I'm really working hard on, and, and this was a process for me, because like COVID, and I just really own this, and anybody that's been around me, I ended up calling I had a personality I really didn't appreciate. I called him Captain COVID. And really, I got it to, it really, I found kind of, I didn't intend to, but kind of, I don't want to demonize this too much, but like, I had it. And like when people would poo-poo it and they weren't vaccinated and they didn't wear masks and people were still dying. And I know people have all kinds of views on that, but it was really hard to be anywhere and socialize in a way that was very positive. So getting off social media took me away from all that. I tried to do my own healing. And, I've had COVID twice now. I've had both vaccinations and my booster. And I'm kind of at a place, I just finally had to take that whole, like a backpack, and set it down and let it go. So I feel okay. I had COVID again in December this year. We went to the Titans game, and the first time I went to a football game without all masks and all that shit, I got COVID. So that taught me that lesson. But anyway, but the great thing about that one, and I will say this, it was one of the best things that happened to me, because it was like a 3-day deal. It was kind of like a cold, and then it was gone. And so it kind of took, because I was afraid, because I had a lot of vision issues. I had really, really bad headaches. I had terrible joint pain. And I was really worried that if that happened again, it might be worse. So that did not happen to me. And I don't know if it's because of the vaccine or what, but anyway, so off of social media and all that kind of stuff. And so since then I've been able to set that down and kind of just continue to practice my own mindfulness practice with meditation. And just really trying to work hard about, well, what's my niche right now, and let all that stuff go and focus, like I said, on the things that we have together and what can we build. And that's really where we're going with Hidden Pearls, I think, talking about ways, how can we help heal and serve the world? That's really what we're trying to think about. That's what the pop-ups are about, the courses, the mindfulness, the meditation. And we're really privileged, I think, to be engaged with groups, because we have an identification with athletes, so the NFLPA and the Players Coalition, those groups, and then the MVP with the veterans and that. And so it's a real natural niche for us in that way. Two of our brother-in-laws, 2 tours of all that kind of stuff, and has been really impacted by it. So we feel a great passion for that and are really privileged to do those things. So I guess, not being on there, I don't feel like that. Emma takes care of that for me. And I feel like it's honestly something I feel kind of like guilty about handing all that stuff to her, but like, I just, not a thing for me. So and I'm really committed now that I feel like we've lifted and I feel safe enough to go out. I'm really excited about the pop-ups and being places in person. And meeting people and doing those networking and all that.
And learning to turn his phone on silent.
Well, I kind of feel like, when people are arguing on social media, I kind of feel like people are just throwing their opinion out into the great beyond. And I'm like, I don't know if you're really changing hearts and minds that way. But if you sit down, you have a face-to-face conversation with someone, you're bouncing ideas off, you're expanding. Like, I think I saw a TED Ed video, and it was basically like talking about why storytelling is so important. And it's because I can tell a story, and when I'm telling it, I'm like planting the story in your head, you're envisioning it with your interpretation, and then you take it out into the world. And I think that's super important to have those conversations for that reason.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And so I kind of have the motif of being more of a lighthouse and just being clear about what I believe in and what I stand for, and trying to do that in a way that doesn't blind others, not too bright. And then on the curiosity thing, I've really, really worked hard, and I've got a long way to go, but like with people that I know I disagree with, I've tried to maintain an kind of a framework of what I call genuine curiosity, and just like trying to understand, where they're coming from and what they believe and why they believe it. And, not trying to convince them, not trying to do anything except listen to them and just try to understand where they're coming from, which I think, when I end up learning things that maybe I didn't know, maybe there were things in their life that shaped the way they were. And then I always remember there's a Robin Williams quote out of Good Will Hunting, where he's sitting there talking to Matt Damon, and he looks at him and he says, every person you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
And so, I just I don't judge things. And, in the Buddhist tradition, there are 3 concepts that have really helped. Nothing's permanent, nothing's perfect, and nothing's personal. And everything changes, and our families, our relationships, ourselves, none of it's perfect. So don't create an expectation that it's going to be. It's okay. Allow and accept, work to be the best you can, but don't get hung up on it. And don't take other people's bullshit as personal, because they're fighting their own battle and there's things going on with them, and you got to be confident in who you are and just live out your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you guys see, I'm literally taking notes, and I'm like, I'm going to all of this, I'm putting all of this on whiteboards around my house now. That's what's going down. No, I love that. So I want to hear about Tight End University. I want to hear how the idea was created. You guys, can you guys just give us an idea? Like, what is it if someone hadn't heard of it before?
Tight End University is an opportunity for people of the tight end position to come and get together. And while there have been there's the O-line mastermind and other things where people come and get together. What we started seeing, especially around, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my experience was around George building his career up, and then contract negotiations and all these different things. It was player versus player, and position play, tight end versus tight end. And the amazing thing, which probably crediting you, that George has always been able to do, is to see that it's not ever George versus the other tight ends. And that everyone, when one of them does well, the others only do better. and so to really just continue to raise the bar and to be a unified position in a community in that sense. And so tight end U was an opportunity and kind of this idea and vision for everyone to come together and learn from each other, and also to build relationships and have those conversations and the understanding of that. Within that, we did a lot of football talk, a lot of theory. There was a lot of conversations that I sat in on that I didn't understand, which you can go into, but we also did yoga and meditation, and we ran routes, and it was so cool to watch like Greg Olson out there coaching up all these newer tight ends. And it was really special. So
yeah, I think she really captured the essence of it. I mean, George has that. I mean, the better everybody is. So every time a tight end gets a higher paid contract, it lifts the bar for everybody. So that's kind of the standard. Because really nothing against, I love Gronk, but Gronk kind of sold everybody out when he was with the Patriots because he took a low Belichick deal to try to save the team and all that kind of stuff. But he was kind of the standard marker for tight ends, and that was what the salary got stuck at for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so, it's not about that. And so George isn't against Mark Andrews. He's not against Travis. Every time a tight end performs at the highest level and wins a game for their team, it increases the value of the tight end position. And so that's kind of just a different philosophy, I think, than maybe what they've had. And
even now, like there have been some organizations that we've talked to that have been like, well, this is the contract that you're going to get offered because you're a tight end. And it's like, what? It just seems so weird with the value that, obviously we believe George provides a lot of value, but like the value that these positions are bringing and how it's still just considered like a not very,
like in the marketing world,
there's certain companies, not a very special position still.
They've got it slotted. And so, well, tight ends only get this much for this kind of activity. And you're like, yeah, but you're paying a rookie wide receiver twice that, and they've never caught a ball.
And the flexibility of what, like when I watch a 49ers game and I see how they use George, or I watch a Chiefs game and I see how they're using Travis Kelce, it's like, dude, they have so much flexibility in that position. You're a blocker. You can get the ball handed off like a sweep. You can go out for passes. Like there's so much you can do in that.
Yeah, which means basically you have to know what at least most of the interior line is doing. You have to know what all the wide receivers are doing. So you got to be able to read coverages. You got to be able to run block. You got to do all those kind of things. And he'll come out of the backfield probably 3 to 5 snaps a game. And so you got to really understand the fullback position, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so tight end U was that vision. And we did it where I was coaching high school ball at Lipscomb Academy, and they were great hosts. And so we had about 50 tight ends, NFL tight ends come in. And so we kind of we had a little workshop format. Then we'd go out and practice some stuff. Some circle groups broke into smaller things and had an opportunity to just, asking them to share things about whether it was contract negotiations or lessons learned. And so we really tapped into veterans, talking to younger players and that kind of stuff. And so had some great social events. Nashville's great for that. And we had great sponsors. We did a youth event. We brought in like 50 kids out of the Nashville Boys and Girls Clubs. Bridgestone sponsored that, and we did just kind of a little mini camp, 2 or 3 hour deal, and kids got to catch the ball and throw it and run around and stuff. And so that was really cool too. So we raised money and donated to the different foundations and that kind of stuff. So it was a pretty cool event. So we're in planning now. This year's going to be at Vanderbilt, just because we're expecting somewhere between 75 and 100 NFL tight ends. So that's really good.
That's so cool.
If folks are following Hidden Pearls, we will have Casey Stengel on, who is the DFO. So kind of following
Director of Football Operations.
So last year we did some stuff on women in sports. And so that kind of, it's kind of a kick, we want to stay with that, just on, honor and respect that. And then also we're going to talk a little bit about Vandy and what they offer, and then their preparations to work with us on tight end use. So that should be coming out here shortly in the next 3 weeks.
Oh, that's cool.
Excited about that. So Vandy's been great so far. We're really excited about that. Our partners with Rubicon Marketing, they're kind of helping with all the sponsors and organizations. So we got some great, Levi's is helping. So I can't remember them all, but anyway, so don't slide anybody. But anyway, so we got
Charmin. Charmin loves tight ends.
Oh, the Charmin.
The Bears.
Classic. That just adds up.
Charmin Bears showed up. So there's a red one and a blue one, and they're in these furry suits. So last year they're out on the turf.
So hot.
And it was like 100 degrees.
On the turf.
And I'm
like
swearing.
humid.
The red bear almost fainted. Like he was like
he's like dancing, like trying to catch stuff, so and we be there and take photos, and all of a sudden he's like really leaning. Like,
no.
So we took him in the air conditioned into the indoor, and he sat down. He took the thing off. He's just drenched.
Teaching him about hydration and electrolytes. Yeah.
So the little bears, so all the end zones were made up of toilet paper rolls. for the sponsors anyway. But anyway,
Well, and like the afterwards, because they just had, I mean, they built up like toilet paper towers, and then afterwards they were all left, and so we had toilet paper for like
Done.
the entire year. Yeah.
Perfect.
So much. We had a tower in our garage.
yep,
There's
so,
the secret benefit of this whole thing there.
there you go. So anyway, yeah, very excited about all that, and it should be yeah. So anyway, so got a good group coming in. I think we're more organized than we were the last time around, and kind of getting all those things lined up. So should be a really fun, 2-3 days. They come in on a Wednesday night. They're there Thursday and Friday. Then a lot of the guys take off Friday, and then they'll do a little golf thing on Saturday for the guys who want to stay.
Nice.
But anyway, so really neat social event, and raise some money for some foundation and learn a little bit about football.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing that I find interesting, and I brought it up. My leadership class, we do every so often we'll do lessons about the 7 habits of highly effective people for my 7th grade leadership class. And one of the habits is think win-win. And I brought up Tight End University because I was talking about, or we were discussing the abundance mindset. And I just, I think it's so interesting. Like it seems like this whole thing is shifting this paradigm in like a really competitive community, like football players. When you think of competitive people, you think of like football players or like athletes, Yeah, exactly. And the fact that they're getting together, they're all from different teams, and them together, they're going to go farther than they would alone, is just like a beautiful thing. And I think all it takes is someone to come along to create this and then realize like, hey, we can do this thing in a different way. And then other people are like, oh, wow, I didn't know you could do it that way. Now everyone would jump on board, I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and that's really it. So, I mean, it's a belief, like, I guess if it's a piece of pie, the more people you bring to feed, do you think the slices get smaller? And so you have to take the biggest cut you can get? Or do you think as you bring more people and more energy and more skills and more resources and more love, does the pie just get bigger?
More ingredients, bigger pies.
Yeah.
More people knowing how to make pies.
Yeah. And so it just, it really is that different kind of thing. And so if you believe that it's a limited scarcity world, then you're going to cut and grab the biggest chunk you can get because you have to protect yourself, versus you're not going to worry about that stuff. It is a win-win. And in fact, and that's, the other mindfulness theory is, separation is an illusion, right? I mean, and I know that's a concept that boggles people's minds, but we really are all connected. And so to the extent that one of my fellow beings is suffering, really in the long run, I'm suffering. And I know that disconnect, we've created that because we don't want to see it. We turn off the TV, we don't walk down certain neighborhoods or whatever it is and all that. So, creating this notion of unity and that the water will raise for everybody. And I think the thing about that is you just have to make sure you're looking over the edge of the boat, making sure that there are no people left behind, because there certainly are. But anyway, but that it is a different attitude, and rather than a world of scarcity versus a world of abundance, and that the more we create, the more there is for everybody. And the idea is to create and share and lift up.
That's amazing. That's a beautiful, I'm going to take that clip, show it to the 7th graders. I feel like it was trying to explain an abundance mindset. It's hard. It was hard for 7th graders to understand, like being 13 and being more egocentric at that age. I'm trying to teach them like, hey, like when it's concepts like success or love, like there's enough to go around,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know I don't think Stephen Covey, is it right? The 7 traits.
Yeah.
I don't think he had a meditation section in there, but
he needs 8 habits.
Well, I just, I think about education, and we memorize mathematical tables and we learn pronouns and nouns and verbs, and, it's all kind of cool stuff. And I mean, it helps us with the world, but like, why aren't we teaching meditation, mindfulness, that thoughts are just thoughts, emotions, just emotions, the power of choice, we've talked about that, right? Yeah. Like, between stimulus and response, you have that space. And you can choose who you want to be to show up in that moment. And, if we would release people from the bondage of just being caught up in their minds and emotions and help them make the choices and actually spend time, like, who do you want to be? What values do you care about? Does honesty matter? Does trustworthiness matter? Does honor and loyalty? And then you have a moment where you can choose to be that person or not. Life is not just rolling over you. You can stand up and be who you choose to be. And, if we had kids that knew breath work and could calm themselves, get centered, get grounded, and then make a choice in that moment not to punch somebody in the face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And teach them about maybe healthy masculinity and what strong and powerful women look like, in a healthy way that builds unity and community. I mean, I just feel like, we could spend a lot more time on that than, whatever.
Well, and what's the New York Times article that you just read about, like, just the mental health crisis in teens and the youth now is, especially like coming out of COVID and then with social media, I mean, it's terrifying.
Oh, the opiate and all that. And like, we've done several shows with national suicide prevention organizations. And we've just, we have members of the Niners, they have family members who committed suicide. We know veterans who have had either family and or others commit suicide. And honestly, on that MVP show, because I sit in on one of the weekly meetings, we had a guy last weekend and had to call people, and he was there to tell his story, but like, he had a bottle in his hand and was ready to go. And so the reality of that, and then I think about the youth and the transition and living in a Zoom world, not having connection, and their only reality really is digital and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And so I really feel for that. And then just the opioid condition that through our nation and a reliance on that. So anyway, we had a lot of work. And so maybe we can all breathe more, do a little bit of yoga and talk to each other.
Do you feel, so I feel like the idea of like these small acts that we can do, these small individual acts can add up over time. And you guys are bringing that to the world, and you're bringing this kind of like, like you guys talk about, mindfulness. Like, I think that brings it to the world, because if you're truly mindful in a moment, you're probably not going to treat anybody with negativity. I don't know.
Well, if one of your values is love and kindness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, every time I call our internet provider, it's an opportunity for me to practice mindfulness. Because like, you're on hold forever. They never really take care of it. The internet sucks. And you kind of want to, but that person just got a job and they probably got 2 kids and the car broke down and what, it's like, okay, if I can be kind in those moments, like, so it's just like, appreciating that. And, it's that thing too about like, life continually repeats the experiences we need in order to learn some lesson. And so like, if I keep having whatever, I'm either projecting the wrong energy or I haven't learned the lesson.
Yeah.
And so like, what thoughts am I generating that is creating this reality for me? Because those thoughts are the veil that I see the world through. So how do I need to change my thoughts or my beliefs in a way that will open up those doors, and I can learn this lesson, I can step over to the next stage?
Well, and I think that's like tying back to the open windows concept that we started with.
Exactly.
Like, the way that I kind of see those windows they're like karmic lessons, right? And like, when you have to learn the same lesson over and over, and you're like, oh my gosh, I keep going through this. Oh my gosh, this just keeps happening. It's like, I feel like people are in those windows then, and that's the lesson. It's like the test, right? And I mean, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, or I mean, seeing that within yourself and being able to own it, like, this is a quest or this is a task, and like, not minimizing how big these things are, but like overcoming these obstacles. And like, I mean, for us, we watched Lord of the Rings and The Matrix, and I mean, just really like quest heavy, like we're going to go slay a dragon type things. And I think now, like, the older I get, I see those big things that I make them in my head that I get really intimidated by or scared by. It's like, I just have to go through them. And it's not something it doesn't mean that I can't have what I want. It's like these tests and these obstacles to get me there. And so when you think about these windows or these windows of opportunities, like, I feel like people see them and they're like, oh, a window's open, like only in the good light, right? Or only in a positive situation. But the windows can be there in the bad situations also. And those are the windows where you have to really be present. And I think that's like the most important time to practice mindfulness, is in those moments when you're feeling really down, or like you're in those caves, because that's when nobody else is going to come and get you. And you have to figure out how to get out of them.
Right. Ryan Holiday, right? Stoicism. I don't know if you follow him at all, but so, I mean, his one book is The Obstacle is the Way. And so those things in your life, which you are pushing away from and resisting, those are the things you need to lean into and embrace. So if it's a neighbor who you think's a pain in the ass, I mean, I don't know what it is, but like and over time, that is certainly true. And the thing about it is, if you walk away and you kind of put it under the rug, it will resurface. It
doesn't go away.
It will always come back. So you're choosing, I'm either going to deal with it now, with an open heart and an open mind, or it's going to implode on me at some point down the road because I didn't deal with it. So, I mean, I think that's really true. And I think I really love that point. Like the open windows concept, we should view those challenges in the same way. This is an opportunity. Like if I'm being mindful before I enter into that situation, I'll try to say, okay, what is the lesson here?
Mm-hmm.
What am I, this whole thing, and believing that life happens for us and not to us. So if life is happening for me, then what is this experience about?
Right. And then it goes back to the whole Jurassic Park thing of like feeling really tiny. And it's like, all of these lessons are just opportunities for me to grow and show up in. And so it's like, Is it really have to be as big and as scary? Or like, does it have to be like, oh my gosh, if I like, does it really matter? Oh my gosh, if I don't like pass this test and like I get cut out of this social group, or like I don't show up this way on social media, or, you know, I don't perform a certain way, like, is it really the end of the world? No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're still going to keep going and you're still going to be there. And I think those really hard situations, like the more situations that I go through, the older that I get, the more shitty situations you go through. Right. And
that's an unfortunate thing about life, but it is true.
It is, but it's like they get less shitty the more mindful and aware you can be within them, because it's more about just being present and like seeing, okay, why is this happening to me? Like, what am I doing? And I think the other cool thing is like, once you can start to own it, and I know that was a really big shift in my life, like when the same type of things kept hurting me over and over and over. And finally I was like, okay, Emma, like, how am I doing this to myself? Then I took control of it, and then I could consciously make the decision to change.
That's amazing. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for giving me an hour of your time. Anything to kind of wrap up? Any like, I know I wrote down like power of stories. Is there any like stories you just mentioned, Lord of the Rings, anything like that that's really connected with you guys lately? Bruce, Miley Cyrus, obviously listen to one of your Mindful Mondays.
I think one thing, like, so we've been going through Bruce's whole, so there's the 4 steps of knowing the self. And then there's the 4 steps of performance planning, which stay tuned. We're going to talk about those on Hidden Pearls podcast. But we've been going through that. And the one thing that we keep coming back to is we think it's so like the big stories, and like George's story is epic and awesome, and the things that he's overcome. But the other things that have made like huge impacts on us are like, how are more regular people dealing with everyday life and showing up in situations that don't seem so big and shiny and glamorous, and how are they getting through those moments and staying really present and finding joy in their life? And so what we keep coming back to is like this storytelling is self-discovery through storytelling. And then we're, the romantic optimist of storytelling to change the world. Because if you can change the energy of one person and inspire one person and be that ripple effect, then you can really start to make a difference on the world and on the planet.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, where can people find your podcast? Well, I just talked about the ripple effect last week with my students. So I totally believe that. That is my 100%, like what I believe deep down in my core is that ripple effect is going to happen. It's going to be positive or negative. If you're sending out positive energy, it's going to just cause a change, whether it's small, eventually it'll be big, But anyways, where can people find your podcast? I love it. I'm a huge fan.
Wait, hey, I just want to, one thing on the mindfulness track, I just want to encourage whoever's listening, is mindfulness stands for the concept of developing awareness around being able to focus, or the understanding the object of your focus, whatever it is your mind is concentrating on, but doing so and holding space for that with love and without judgment. And so so as we develop awareness, meditation is not an escape hatch. It's how to hold space and lean into the difficult parts of your life. But I just want I think our world is so judgmental. We're critical of everybody and everything all the time. And the worst is that we treat ourselves, for the most part, worse than we would ever treat a brother or sister, a mother or father, a neighbor, a friend. And so I just want to encourage folks, as you work to own your own, whatever, your business, your stuff, your shit, whatever, do so in love and without judgment. Because here's the thing, the story is not over. You have the power to change your story and to write your story in any way you want. So if it's not what you want, then that's the great thing about it. But just do it with less judgment, and don't be critical, and don't get stuck. You're not done. So remember, small, consistent steps, all taken in the same direction, lead to amazing results. So we are all in control of the ability to change our lives. It may not be perfect, like I said, but you can take those steps. And reach out. The other thing is about community and connection. You're not alone in this. So like, we have a email, you can email us, like, but you're not alone. If you get into trouble, we don't have any real answers, but we can refer you to people and try to do it. So just, gosh, reach out. It's okay not to be quite okay, because we're all not okay. And that's why we're all here. So anyway, so Hidden Pearl Podcast, go, Emmy.
We're actually in the process of redoing our website. So there's going to be a new website launch soon. So pretty excited about that. So I would direct you in the process of our rebuild to go to our Instagram is Hidden Pearls Podcast. And then, yeah, I mean, Instagram is probably the best way, or if you want to send us an email, you have info@thunderbirdperformance.com. But yeah, just whatever feels good. We try to post a Mindful Monday every Monday, which have been coming out on Tuesday lately. So Mindful Tuesdays.
This week was Wednesday. I know. We're in the process of moving a house and all that stuff. So
but either way, just little reminders of, Bruceisms to carry with you throughout the day.
Man, I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much. Seriously, you're both amazing, and I've learned so much from you. So please keep it up.
Hey, and congratulations, $299, man.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Well, enjoy your time away, and that'll be really great.
Thank you.
Love you, brother. Take care. Thank you.
Yeah, I love you too, guys. See ya.